G'day, Dave here, and we're looking at Matthew chapter 6 and verses 19 through to 25. Jesus is giving us a picture of what the kingdom of heaven is like, and it's massively radical. It's completely countercultural. It's so different to the patterns and the priorities of the world around about us, and it challenges us to the point of our very hearts. What are we living for? What are we focused on? What are we depending on? Where is our security? Well, Jesus will challenge us in these matters. And as we look at what he has to say, I want us to ask three diagnostic questions. To ask questions that'll help us to see where our hearts are at and how we need to respond. Well, let's look at what Jesus has to say, verse 19. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourself treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. See, Jesus is saying the kingdom of heaven is not about what you accumulate for yourself here and now. In fact, he points out the folly of thinking that you can become secure by gaining possessions. Because what happens to those possessions? Well, they rust. They get destroyed. They get eaten. They depreciate. They're not worth it anymore. They've been superseded. They're out of date. They're no longer fit for purpose. You see, if we live for things, if we focus on what we can accumulate, whether it's our bank accounts or the things that our bank accounts can pay for, if we're living for stuff in this life, if that's where our heart is at, if our treasure is here and now, then we will miss out. Because the things of this life are decaying. They're deteriorating. They're being taken from us. And if our heart is living just for stuff in this world, then it will miss out on what God has in store for all eternity. We should know the reality of this, shouldn't we? What's going on at the moment around the world is that people are losing their jobs. People are losing their businesses. People are having to find alternative accommodation. People are realising they're not going to be able to live in the manner that they were used to. Governments are pouring out billions and billions of dollars to help the economy and to help prop up society. But that money's going to run out as well. And there's going to be debts that are unpaid for decades as we recover from what we're going through now. And that's assuming we can recover. That's assuming that there's not another one of these things that'll just cycle us deeper and deeper into debt and deeper into despair. Unless, of course, we realise that these things were never intended to be our security. So the temptation is for us to think, well, I've paid up my house now. I've got something tangible. Is it really tangible? Friends of ours had their house burnt down only a few weeks ago. Or we think that, yes, I've finally got my own car. I've always wanted a new car. And then it gets run into or somebody runs their bike down the side of it. We get robbed. Things rot, they rust, they get eaten. Friends, if we live for the things of this life, the things that we can gather for ourselves, then we're deluded and we're missing out. And so here's the first diagnostic question. What are you investing in? What do you really see as giving you security? Is it a big bank account? Is it a real estate portfolio? Is it a bundle of shares? Or is it treasure in heaven? Second thing Jesus has to say, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, then your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Now, it's a little unclear at first glance how Jesus is using this metaphor, but we need to see it in context. He's talked about where your treasure is, about what you're depending on, where your investments are. And he's going to go on and say straight after this that you cannot serve both God and money. And so it's reasonable to assume that this metaphor kind of fits somewhere in this zone. That it's really about where you are focused, what your vision is like, what you're looking at, what your priorities are. Are you looking at what God says will last, what is eternal? Are you focused on the kingdom of heaven, bringing light into your life, into this world? Or are you focused on the things of this world, the job, the career, the real estate, the business venture, having money for yourself, providing for your retirement? Is this where your eyes are focused? And if you think that you're focused on the things in this world and that they're bringing light into your life, then that is even sadder, because what you think is light is actually darkness. And so the second diagnostic question, what's your vision like? Where are you focused? What are you looking at? And then finally, Jesus says, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You see, God and money, they're taking you in two different directions. It's a bit like the person who wants to have a foot on the pier and a foot on the boat. Well, if the boat starts moving, you realise pretty quickly that you cannot straddle both. And that's what's going on here. We want to have a buck each way. We want to trust in our investments and trust in God. And God's saying you can't. It doesn't work like that. Either your heart is with me, either you're trusting yourself, your family, your belongings, your future, everything to me, or you're trusting in things and you're not trusting in me. Jesus won't take second place. He won't share the platform with anybody else. Now, if we are trusting in God, then we will realise very clearly that money just doesn't cut it. That belongings just won't provide security. That it doesn't matter how much is in the bank or how much we have on contract, it's not going to help us out ultimately. And even if it enables us to live in luxury in this life, then it won't save us from death and it won't give us any help beyond the grave. Friends, if you want security, a true security, a security that will last, that nothing can destroy and nothing can take from you, then look to God. One Master, one Saviour, one Lord. Look to God. Put your treasure in heaven. And as you come to recognise that you can't serve both God and money, and you devote yourself to serving God, so you'll be liberated. And there'll be a security that you never imagined, and a freedom to live for God rather than being consumed by providing for yourself.